Welcome to this Considered Opinions podcast.
I'm Dougal.
And I'm Celia. Thank you for joining us. There's a lot of talk at the moment about apathy. There's also a lot of talk about fear, about the way the world's going, and also overwhelm with how to deal with it, and guilt if you take a break.
Yes.
So I'd like to talk about all of these things, how they all fit together, and how we can actually live our lives. Because at the end of the day, we still have to live life. If we don't, what are we fighting for?
I also think we're really risking burning ourselves out.
Yes.
If we don't take time to look after ourselves. It's a little bit like when you're on a plane and they do the safety briefing at the beginning and they talk about the masks dropping down and they say, put your own mask on first before you try and help someone else. If we're not in a good place and a good position for ourselves, then we're not going to be as effective at helping others as we can be.
Yeah, I agree. And a good place to start with this is looking at our attitude to things. And actually, when you look at it, being aware of what's going on, being proactive with the democratic process that we live under,
yes,
is actually just responsible citizenship. And actually, it's something that we should have been practicing all along. But somewhere along the lines, we lost sight of the fact that democracy doesn't mean casting your vote every 3 years and then sitting back and magic happens. It actually means constant, proactive, being aware of what's going on, and that's a process of the responsible citizenship.
Yeah, because we got used to being able to trust our bureaucrats and our politicians that they would do the right thing. And I was reminded recently, when you say, somewhere along the line, there is the risk that people can say, all of a sudden, people are passing lots of laws and they're doing this and they're doing that. In actual fact, this all started to happen a long time ago. I was listening to someone recently, it was from the Lotus Eaters, and they were talking about how the Blair government, now that's going back to the 90s and early 2000s, they passed something like 2,500 laws. It worked out at something like 5 or 6 a week. They were going like Billy-O, passing laws and changing things. And it's not a new phenomenon. It's just that we stopped watching and we took our eye off the ball, and they've been changing these laws really fast for quite a long time now.
I think it helps as well when we have that attitude shift of this is something we've got to get through, and once we get through to the other side, it'll all be okay again and we can go back to how things were, rather than having that, which means we're essentially waiting. We're keeping ourselves in a state of limbo.
Yes.
Instead, we have the attitude of this is what responsible citizenship looks like. This is the price of democracy.
Yes.
And this is part of my life, and I'm going to keep doing it. And the other thing is, when you have that attitude change, then you start to really create a sustainable way of doing things. So you might decide that you're only going to do submissions on issues that really concern you, whatever it is. Maybe it's your child's education, maybe it is on the climate issues, whatever it is that you feel is the most important thing for you. And if we all do that, we'll have everything covered. The other thing you could also say is that you're only going to do one submission a month. And whatever it is. So you create a sustainable framework that fits in with your life and everything else you've got going on.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you try and do everything, you'll burn out. And I think one of the key things here, the way I'd phrase it, is it's not up to just you. We are a community, whether you look at your local community or whether you look at it at a national level or even broader. But it doesn't fall on just you. The world is not going to come apart because you don't make a submission. We have to look after ourselves, and we have to trust that others are going to pull their weight. So we do our bit, yeah, sure. But we don't try and take the world's weight upon our shoulders.
Or try and make up for others not doing their bit.
Yes.
I think that fear of others possibly not doing their bit is very indicative of how fear plays into the possibility of burnout. And it can happen at an individual level, it can happen at an organizational level. But if you feel like without you or without the job you're doing, everything is going to fall apart, that you are indispensable, then that's a fear. Always, whenever we act out of fear, we don't make the optimal choices.
Well, there's a very good reason why over the last 4 or so years the establishment has used fear as their go-to tool. It's the easiest of responses to trigger. It's a very base response within our biology. But the thing is with fear is it's fine in the here and now to avoid an immediate danger. It's great if you want to get away from a lion or avoid a snake. It's not so useful if it's something that is an ongoing fight that we have to carry on over a long period of time. We can't live there forever. It will burn you out. It becomes too tiresome. It's unsustainable.
And I think that what you might call apathy is a reaction to that fear. What you might have seen in the wider population during COVID, for example, is acting out of a place of fear. It becomes overwhelming, and then you might get to the point where, well, there's nothing I can do, or it's all too much for me to handle. And
that is definitely what we see with the wider public is, and I had a conversation with this recently with people, that they just want to move on and they don't really want to talk about it anymore. Now, I have a bit of a problem with that because we never really talked about it in the first place, but people don't want to dwell on it anymore.
They don't want to live in that state of fear,
yes,
the fight or flight mode. They want to create a new type of life. It's not going back. And that's the thing I think that is important to remember, is that we're always going to be going forwards. We can't go back. We're going to create a new normal with a different attitude towards how we approach our citizenship, and also a sustainable way of integrating that into our lifestyles.
I think our life as a whole is really, really important. In actual fact, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to reflect on our lives and ask questions like, what brings us the most joy? What gets us up and motivates us to do? You know, what is our purpose here in life? These sort of big questions that perhaps we haven't asked ourselves in the past because we've just sort of muddled through. But now that we've got a chance to actually ask some of these deep questions, because why you're doing what you are doing, you may find that there are some things that you're wasting a lot of time on, or maybe that which is bringing you joy is not what you thought it was. Or maybe you're spending too much time on certain activities and not cherishing enough the things that are close to you.
That also plays into how to live life. And in our culture, we have it ingrained to be obsessive about things. You want to be the expert, or you want to be a professional. Whatever it is, we have to do it 110%.
Yes.
And that automatically transferred to how people approach responsible citizenship. And what we're saying is that responsible citizenship isn't giving 110% all the time. It's integrating it into your lifestyle in a manageable size, and focusing on the things that matter to you, your family, and your community, and trust that others will pick up the baton in their communities and on the issues that affect them.
One of your favourite sayings is that we're human beings, not human doing.
Yes. So in this situation, when we're building a new normal for ourselves and our communities, we can take a look at responsible citizenship of a manageable size.
Yeah, can we make a habit out of it, that it's not becoming a chore, that it is just something that we do within our normal routine.
And remembering why we're doing this in the first place.
Yes.
That's an important thing, because if you spend all your time focusing on being the responsible citizen because you want to create a better world for the future, or you want to be able to do things in the future, whatever it is, and then you look around and you've lost it.
And this is where friends and family sort of come into it. You can put all of your time and effort into trying to make the world a better place. And why are you doing it? Well, maybe you're doing it because you've got friends and loved ones who you care about and you want the best for them. But then if you spend all of your time trying to make the world a better place, you then might wake up or some way down the line saying, I missed time to spend with my friends and family. And that's really what I mean by we need to examine our own lives and ask what brings you the lasting joy. And the other thing there is lasting. I'm not talking about, dopamine hits. I enjoy a beer after work, or I enjoy dancing on the weekends. I'm talking about the lasting joy over a long period of time, and that usually is relationships. We're relational beings, and it'll be our relationships that hold us together.
Yeah, and that actually will motivate us in the long term as well.
Yeah.
There's something that we haven't discussed as much so yet, is the guilt aspect. And I think it's twofold here. One is the guilt that we place on ourselves. Oh dear, I missed that deadline for that submission, or I didn't attend that protest, or I didn't write whatever to my MP. And there's also the guilt that others can put on us by saying like, well, you have let it happen, or you've not fought hard enough, or you were asleep at the wheel. And I think that the guilt in either of those situations is completely misplaced. We have to trust that each of us is doing the best we can in our situation. They say don't judge a person till you've walked a mile in their shoes. Then you'll be a mile away and you'll have their shoes.
Yep, that's on.
But actually, I think rather than focusing on what other people are doing, once again, it comes back to us and ourselves. And that's the only thing we can control, ourselves and our attitude.
Which is quite freeing, because then you're not responsible for other people's actions. And you're not. You are not responsible for other people's actions.
Exactly. And I think as well, we're not responsible for other people's actions, and we don't need to worry about their actions.
No.
Because there's nothing we can do about it.
Yep.
And so just really focusing on creating the lifestyle and the life that we want, full of these things of lasting joy, and integrating that responsible citizenship into our lifestyles, that is the sustainable way forward.
There's a couple of points that this raises for me. One is that the process of guilt, it's a little bit like fear. It can be useful in little amounts in order to change some bad habits, but we can't live there. It'll burn you out just like living in fear will. The other concept that this triggers in my mind is that we need to be also mindful that we don't want people to feel too much guilt at this point in time, because everyone's on a journey. They're at different points, and we need to give people the space and the grace to come to the realization in their own time.
And then they will really own it.
Yes.
That's the other fantastic thing about it.
It's like how, we've talked about it previously, how the Mongols used to fight a battle. They would often they wouldn't completely surround an enemy. They would leave a space. They would leave a route of escape for that enemy. And so we want to, not that our fellow citizens are enemies, but that we need to give them space to save face. To be able to extricate themselves from a position. We don't want to back them into a corner. We want for them to be able to come around to a place where they can say, the establishment lied to us.
I think also that in that sort of situation is people are more drawn to positivity than they are to...
Very good point.
...facts or negativity being shouted at them. So if you...
I think as a society, we are wholeheartedly sick and tired of the negativity, of the fear, and therefore a point of difference for us is, again, comes back to embracing and showing joy in our life, because that will draw people in.
You can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Thank you for joining us for this Considered Opinions podcast. We look forward to seeing you again next time. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.